Good morning. It is 5:54 in the AM here on the East Coast of the United States of America, and it is the 2nd of May. Whoop, whoop. My angle is off, but I don't want to change the camera because otherwise it'll go all funky wonky because I got it set up kind of funky wonky. Anyway, hi, how y'all doing? I'm Beth, and this is my box. I'm at work. It's Friday, but it's kind of like my Thursday because tomorrow is my Friday. Saturday is my Friday, my last day of the work week. So hi. I feel like I kind of cheat y'all because everybody has their own version of what religion is and what spiritual matters are. Um, and because I think I can both do the grandeur, big picture, and I can also do the minuscule, teeny tiny little pieces, okay? So, like yesterday when I was talking about Dumpy being the emperor with no clothes being reincarnated, in order for me to deal with the fact that a lot of Americans voted for this idiot asshole, I have to understand, first of all, it really helped me to understand that the son of a bitch cheated because that's what he does. Okay? Let's be honest about that one. Um, so that helps me understand that, okay, there were people who voted for this ignorant moron, but there weren't enough people to make his win real. You see what I'm saying? He cheated, but those people who voted for him made his cheat look legitimate. You see what I'm saying? So for me, it helps me to realize that very much so, less than half of America voted for this ignorant asshole. I would say maybe 30%, if that, of America, because when you break it down in the numbers, there's 340, so to say, Americans that live in the United States of America, but only 200 of those 200 million of those are legally qualified to vote. That's a rough estimate. It's not exact. Don't hold me to numbers. I'm just giving you kind of a play-by-play because people under 18 can't vote, but that doesn't mean that they're not in the United States and part of the population. Okay? So let's be real about that. And I think it came out to be like 140 something million people voted. Okay? And so Dumpy got 77 million. And Kamala got less than that. I think it was like 76 million or something like that. So basically, out of the 200 million people who could vote, he only got 77 million. I know it's a big number, and it's kind of hard to contemplate when we go, the people who make less money generally think in the realm of thousands, not millions. Okay, so I totally understand that. However, if you look at 20, just taking the 200, not 20, 200 million people, if you just use that as an estimate, half of 20 million is 100 million. And he only got 77 million. So that is not half of America. So we need to understand that. His cheat gave him a couple of million points by his cheating. How he cheated, I can't tell you. I just know from the inside of who I am, and some people can call it my opinion, and that's fine. They can say that all they want. But inside me, I know this some bitch cheated, because that's what he does. Okay? I'm not going to look at a pig and think that a pig is a squirrel. They're two different animals with two different mannerisms. So to try and say he's anything but a cheater is like trying to call a pig a squirrel. You can't do it. A pig is a pig and a squirrel is a squirrel. They're both alive. They both breathe oxygen, but they are completely different characters. So the pig we have in office is a cheater. Simple as that. That's what he does. He cheats and bullies and just whines and complains because, oh my God, life is so not fair to this man who sets fires and then tries to go about extinguishing them. He's a vile individual. He is the worst of humanity. He really is. He sucks big balls. Hold on a second. Somebody's coming. Rod didn't come in yesterday. Remember, if you watched my video. So instead of men sometimes get silly about, are you okay? They don't like hearing that. So I text him saying, where's my cheese stick? Because he wasn't here yesterday. So today he comes by and he gives me 2 cheese sticks. I love Rod. He's a good. I got the cheese sticks and then I dropped the cheese sticks. So anyway, this is what Rod did with one of them. Here, let me just do it with one because I think you'll like it. He's like, hey, little girl. It was funny to me. Anyway, yes, so because of the way that I've gone about researching for my own personal preferences, the way that I disseminate spirituality is not a religion, it's a spiritual setup. I feel uberly blessed sometimes that I feel sorry for others who do not feel the same sentiment that I get. And sadly, a lot of these dumpians, it's kind of par for course, really, because the dumpians and the MAGA men, the women are just lost. They're in their own pudding of what the fuck and don't understand anything, so they're just fucking lost. Because for a woman to have voted for this ignorant asshole and to set up everything that's on its way, you're lost because you've gone against the very nature of being a woman by voting for this creepoid who has been found guilty of finger fucking somebody. Yes, technically it's not considered rape by the standards of New York, but in essence, that's what he did with his finger or fingers. I don't know what he is. He's just a creepy fucking dude. So any woman with any kind of common sense who's not placating or bowing down to her man would have voted against this asshole. But no, you're lost in your own delusion. And that's it. Hold on. So yeah, for the women to have voted for this guy, it's like you're voting against yourself. I don't know what the hell is in your head, but you done lost your marbles. You are kicked out of the game because you got no marbles left. Okay? So my spirituality comes down to my not understanding the Bible. I mean, I did what a lot of people do, and I'm searching through the Bible trying to understand stuff, and I can't even pronounce half the damn names that are in the Bible because those were names of people from back in the way back when. You see what I'm saying? So I studied cultures that were around the area that the Bible was supposed to have had taken place, and I looked at all the various cultures, and you get lost in this whole tornado of different information from different areas. Well, after looking at that for years, and not the way that Christianity wants to force it down our throats, the way that I see it is they took something precious, which is why the Bible's so popular, is because so many people know that there is a spiritual component to the human experience, which is very much so true. So you could be an atheist, but you still have a spirit in you. You just aren't sure. I don't know. I can't answer for you because I'm not you. Now, granted, there's been times where I thought God wasn't real, but I've been proven wrong. So that was cool. And how that was taking place. So anyway, what is harmful to the MAGA is their racism. The misogyny is one thing, but the racism is a whole nother bag of wax. Because if you look back at the ancient history, writing for the average societal structure was not commonplace until maybe 800 BC. Okay? The Egyptians had their form of writing with the hieroglyphs, and then it kind of evolved into Coptic. And you did have the Babylonians or Sumerians who had their version of writing with the dashes, as it were, or cones, if you want to look at it that way. So the writing that people are presuming that took place of the Bible could not have happened really until about 800 BC, if that. From my understanding of my research, the Bible itself, the Old Testament, wasn't really even written until they were kidnapped, or however you want to take it, taken prisoner by the Babylonians that were over there, okay? And they took the Jewish folk, and that, when they were in their captivity, that's when they wrote out the Bible. Now you have to understand that there was a whole lot of politics even back then. So you have the Jewish people that had their understanding of religious matters, and the first 5 books were supposedly written by Moses, okay? Not Moses. Yeah, Moses. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Noah. Anyway, Moses was supposed to have written the first 5 books of the Bible. Well, Moses was also brought up in a Pharaoh's household and raised as a pharaonic child, which meant he got educated the way that the kings and the princes and the queens got educated. So they were smarter than the average individual that lived in Egypt because he was in the Pharaoh's household. Okay. That meant that the understanding of spirituality was completely different than what we perceive spirituality to be today. So you had the Jewish people over in Babylon as captives, and the Babylonians had their beef and their desire to be bigger and better than Egypt. Okay, again, politics was into the whole swing of everything. So the Babylonians wanted to get out of the Jewish people what the hell was the religious practice of Egypt, because it's so complicated yet so simple at the same time. It's a thing, people. That they were trying to get the information from the Jewish people, which is why they wrote the Bible down, so maybe then the Babylonians could decipher it. Well, you have to understand the Jewish people at that time, yes, they went ahead and they wrote their Bible out, but they kind of put it in a way so that the Jewish leaders of the time knew the discrepancies that were in the Bible, that they did on purpose. They were misleading the Babylonians because, fuck you, you captured us. Okay? So the Jewish people the leaders didn't want the Babylonians to know the full scope of everything that they knew, but they had to provide something for them to understand. So the whole flood story about Noah, the Sumerians slash Babylonians had their own version of that flood story. And it may be that that story got incorporated into the Bible because the captives, the Jewish folks, wanted to please their captors, the Babylonians or Sumerians, whichever case it was at the time. So they included that story so that the harshness of their captivity would be lesser. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So the Jewish people who wrote, the leaders at the time who wrote those particular passages of the Bible, knew the secrets in what they were trying to hide in the Bible so their captors wouldn't know. So it makes it difficult for us 2,000-3,000 years later to try and understand what it was that they were trying to hide. If you look into the Jewish philosophy or religion at all, you will see that there is a boo-koodle amount of things that they do in, trying to get rid of a bug, in their religious practices that is specifically geared to remember. So when you see the Jewish folks with the little thing on their head and they're doing their little bouncy thing, it's to remember. The thing that's on their arm that they wear, it's to remember. The shawls that they have with the little tassels at the end, it's to remember. Sadly, because of the way life is and the way time happens and captors killing the people who may have written the book at the time to try and cut it off as far as the secrets, that the Jewish people ended up forgetting what it was they were supposed to remember. And what they're supposed to remember is nah, you don't grow a garden. Let's say we're growing a garden in New York, okay? So I have a garden in New York, and I have 2 rivers in New York that are watering my garden. But I also have 2 more rivers that are watering my garden, but they're located over in China. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? So for people to think of the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers as the other 2 rivers that belong in the Garden of Eden, that was bullshit. You can't, it doesn't make any sense. No sense whatsoever, okay? The actual Garden of Eden that exists in this world is in Africa. So all you MAGAs with your little racism, guess what? You should be looking up to the black folk, not looking down to them, because they are the ones that actually possess the spiritual essence of who we are supposed to be. How about them apples? Yeah. Makes you feel insecure as a little white man, right? Yeah. Should. Now, I don't have that many followers, which is awesome that I have any followers whatsoever. And I hope you don't take this the wrong way or anything like that. But this is what I've found. So with the river that was basically talked about in the Bible is the Nile River. And it even states specifically there are 2 places that are in Egypt that have rivers. The first one talks about Ethiopia. Okay, most people understand Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, there is a river called the Blue River or the Blue Nile. The Blue Nile is a smaller piece of river that goes into the Nile River itself and then comes all the way down to Egypt. But it's more or less south to Egypt, okay? And it doesn't look as big because the lake that it comes out of is Lake Tana, I believe. And it's a small, and it's cute because if you look at it from above, like we can on Google Earth, it looks like a little heart. Ooh, that was a terrible heart. Fuck it. So the Blue River, or the Blue Nile, is one of the rivers. Then you have the White Nile that is also one of the rivers that goes into it. And people are unaware, for the most part, that there are also two more rivers that used to supply the Nile but no longer do, or at least one definite, and that's the Yellow River. That one was to the west, and that one has dried up. There's another one called the Black River, so that's your four rivers right there. It is not, yeah, the Nile River is not over there in Samaria and all of that. No. Tigris and Euphrates have nothing to do with the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is in Egypt, which started with the black folk. Yeah. So the black folk, to me, in my interpretation of everything, are actually closer to God than anybody else. Now, some of the black folk, I'm not saying all the black folk, some of the black folk have lost their way and tried to be like the white man, and it messed them all up. Like creepy dude that I have to work with on Wednesdays and Fridays. Oh, yeah. He's been whiteified. So he's like a reverse Oreo cookie. Okay? Well, no, he'd be an Oreo cookie. It's black on the outside, white on the inside. Because all he thinks about is his little winky. Boop, boop, boop. He thinks the whole world should revolve around his winky. That's his mentality. And it's pathetic, really. But it makes it more difficult for people like me who can sense what the fuck he's doing, going home and making himself happy. It makes it difficult for people like me because then I have to pay attention to where the fuck he's at so that I can make sure that I'm somewhere else. Okay? So if you've ever been around somebody who's been a Me Too survivor, this is what we have to deal with. It's an unspoken reality for people like me to have to deal with. Whoever it is that was the biggest jerkified out there, you have to try and avoid them. But in order to avoid them, you need to know where they're at to avoid them. It's a whole thing. So yes, the Garden of Eden was in Egypt. Or not Egypt per se, but in Africa. That's where it is. So all of you magadonians that are hating on the black folk, you are hating on the people that are closest to God. So good job. Don't come crawling your Christian saying self up to me, because if you're speaking like that and you're hating on the black people, you're speaking Roman propaganda, and I got nothing to do with that. That's not my cup of tea. Anyway, it's been 23 minutes. Oh, dang. Anyway, apparently I can talk when I get to going. All right. I hope you all have a beautiful day. Take care of yourselves because that's all we got. And peace out for now.